Breaking news. The High Court has approved Southern Response class action to proceed. Now, I'm ad-libbing all of this, but I know the story well, so forgive me if I'm not quite precise. But Southern Response, of course, their clients tried to take a class action. At first, that was ruled out because the test was, what was the commonality? You can't have a class action if you were just a disparate get-together. You actually have to have a central spine that binds you. Well, now the High Court has said there is one, that they can, all of these claimants can act against Southern Response together, meaning they don't all have separate lawyers' fees. They can unite in a class action. A court-sanctioned opt-in order has also been granted, allowing other Southern Response policyholders who might have been tentative about participating in this appeal until 16 April 2017 to join the class action if they wish. I think we've got Brian Kinder on the phone. Brian, are you there?
Yes, I am, John. Yes.
Brian, we have spoken before, and you are one of the class action claimants, aren't you?
That's correct, and a very happy one too, John.
So when did you find out?
I found out via someone that rang me from Radio New Zealand about 2 minutes ago, and I am incredibly excited, and it's just wonderful news. We can't be happier.
Yeah. Can you... I mean, you either know the story or you don't, so apologies if we're telling people stuff we already know, but you were insured with AMI, right?
That's correct, John.
And then AMI kind of set aside its Christchurch earthquake exposure because it simply couldn't meet it, and the government picked it up in the form of Southern Response. That's right, isn't it?
That's correct, John, yeah.
Okay, you then found yourself in just a nightmare of litigation, claim, counterclaim, back and forth, just endlessly.
Well, we've kind of been living a promise from Southern Response for about almost 5 years, and then we come across Grant Cameron, who has really got things going for us. But basically, Southern Response have just been categorically refusing to settle us all the way through. We've spent countless hours on it, and there's been countless tears at home. I mean, these people just do not know what they do to family life. They just are absolutely heartless.
Yeah, and I've spoken to lots of these people, and they say that thing. Is the impact that profound?
It's very profound. You start living this every day because you're just not getting anywhere with them. You try and settle. You've got an insurance policy, and believe you me, the very last thing I'd want to enter into with the government is an insurance policy. So we had a private insurer, and by default, we ended up with the government. And a whole lot of people who knew nothing at all about insurance, who are pretending they know about building. They're pretending they know about project management. Most of them come off, well, I've got to be diplomatic here, John, I suppose, but the good people probably have jobs, and these people came into Southern Response, a lot of them
I understand where this is coming from, and it's coming from a profound sense of frustration. Were you September or February, your damage?
Well, our big damage was in February.
Okay, so we're what, 5 3/4 years, aren't we?
That's right, John.
Of limbo, of uncertainty, of toing and froing, and now you get your day in court, and you won't be alone.
That's right, John, yeah. Incredibly excited about that opportunity, and I'm sure, Grant and the rest of his team are too. They've been working incredibly hard. And they just come up against absolute stonewall of, it really is the classic delay, deny, defend. It really is. In fact, it's criminal what they're doing in New Zealand.
Brian Kinder, thank you for joining us, Brian. Brian has just got the news. And we really appreciate Brian talking to us. Brian is one of the class action claimants. So previously they were told they couldn't take a class action, that whilst they all had the same insurer and they all had grievances with the same insurer and they all felt like Brian felt about Southern Response, that alone wasn't a form of commonality. That wasn't the connection required in law for a class action. Grant Cameron has been taking this case. And Grant, are you there on the phone now?
Yes, I am. How are you, John?
Yeah, well, probably not as good as you, Grant. This is a triumph for you, isn't it?
Well, it's been a very prolonged process, and we're very happy that the courts have accepted that this type of case can proceed.
So what is the spine? That's the word we're looking for, isn't it? What is the spine the court found that binds these cases, other than the fact they're all against Southern Response?
Well, basically, the courts accepted that the argument put forward, the allegation is that Southern Response engaged in a deliberate strategy designed to deceive policyholders and delay claims with a view to reducing the financial liability that it had to its policyholders. So the court's not determining that as a matter of fact as... No,
that's not, and that's important we stress that. This is now the right to take a class action, isn't it?
That's right. It's the right to come before the court and argue that allegation through.
Yeah. Can we back up the truck a bit here, Grant? And you and I have spoken about this an enormous amount, and you've spoken to Pip, our executive producer, and lots of people on Checkpoint. But remind us why you had to go to the High Court. Who had declined the right to a class action prior to now?
There was an application made late last year to effectively get the court sanction for what's called in New Zealand a representative action. I think commonly we refer to them publicly as class action. That was rejected because the judge at the time felt there was not sufficient commonality, and the insurer was vigorously arguing that the damage with individual homes was quite different, so therefore they should be maintained as individual cases. The practical problem is that if you carry on as individual cases, people can't afford the cost of litigation. So by bringing them together, getting a litigation funder, you can actually fund the case forward, and you can then get a common approach, if you like, and the court can look at the thing as a whole. So that's the real reason we wanted to persist. It was knocked back in February, but the judge expressly reserved the right for us to bring a reformulated claim.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here we are.
And you've won.
Yes.
We have to be careful, because I don't want to defame anyone, and also we don't want to read the tea leaves more than the facts support. But the issue around civil action like this is that people do drop out, that there is a high attrition rate because people simply can't afford to take this kind of legal action.
That's exactly right.
And so do we have to look at situations whereby people who en masse are suing the same person or the same organisation have greater rights to class action recourse?
I think that is certainly the trend around the world, and I think the Supreme Court has also given pretty clear direction in a decision in a Credit Suisse case where access to justice has to be the sort of dominant consideration. The difficulty is that we don't yet have class action rules in this country. They have been drafted, but they've been sitting really in a parliamentary process since about 2004. And therefore we're using High Court rules which weren't really intended to cover this type of proceeding. So the courts have been able to stretch and massage things, as it were, and I think the gate is now open, and I think also that the judiciary are coming to terms with what class actions can really make.
Absolutely. Okay. People who haven't joined the class action so far but would like to have until 16 April 2017 to join in, are you expecting that people will?
Yes, we had originally well over 400 inquiries. A lot of people sat on the fence to see whether this was actually going to be going ahead. Now they know. I'm expecting a lot of calls.
And one final question. Southern Response, we've got a response, which I will read out in a sec. They say the High Court ruled by a rather fine margin, a verbatim quote from Southern Response. Can you explain that to me, Grant?
Well, I think that comes down again to the High Court rule and the nature of this question of commonality. And so, on balance, the Judge, Justice Gendel, felt that this matter should proceed in this fashion. And we do think, as the Supreme Court's once commented before, that it's really all a matter of case management, really.
There's been some unpleasant things said about your tenacity in this respect. A couple of people have, said that you are stirring the pot in an unnecessary way, you would regard this as personal vindication, wouldn't you, Grant?
Well, I guess in a passing way, but let's say over the years we've done 15 or 16 successful class actions, and there are all those sort of comments that will be made, but they've all been successful.
Grant Cameron, who is the solicitor, the lawyer from GCA Lawyers, who has taken this case and won the right now to go forward with this class action. What does Southern Response say? Well, they say the High Court ruled by a rather fine margin that the revised claim by the Southern Response Unresolved Claims Group is sufficient to allow the group to proceed with this class action. I'm reading verbatim stuff now. Southern Response is disappointed with the proposed process. It's concerned that a representative action based on what the court described as a reasonably tenuous claim will not efficiently and fairly resolve each customer's individual earthquake claim. Southern Response believes that the amendments to the claim made to allow a representative action have no basis. The court said that it reached its decision by a rather fine margin. The court also indicated that the resolution of group members' individual insurance claims will now likely be postponed until after the group's revised group claim is dealt with. This is likely to delay the resolution of individual claims of group members. As a result, Southern Response is considering its options, including an appeal. Remember, Southern Response, of course, is a government insurance company now. They picked up AMI's insurance policies in Christchurch because AMI was simply unable to pay them. It's 5 minutes to 5. That was breaking news. Thank you to both Grant Cameron and Brian Kinder for calling us, and to Southern Response for their very quick statement.